All right, welcome. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Very excited for this webinar opportunity. Scott, thanks for coming back and working with the National Bicycle Dealers Association. We're fortunate today to have a conversation focused on growing youth and family categories in specialty bicycle retail. Scott Fitzgerald, founder and CEO of Pedal Kids USA and Buddy Peg's Family Bike Shop in Bentonville, Arkansas, joined us at our retailer summit this past May. Not only presented this to our attendees, but also invited his community to the summit location, and we got to see the youth and kids participating in the programs that Scott's bringing forward. And it's fantastic stuff. So I'm really excited for this webinar today. It's such an important category. And Scott, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. I really appreciate the invite and looking forward to just continuing the conversation about youth and family cycling in the bike industry.
As we go along today, attendees, you can place your questions into the chat function. You can also use the Q&A function. We will be answering questions at the end of the presentation, but sometimes things pop into your head as we go along. So go ahead and put questions in the chat at any point, and we'll just moderate those to Scott at the end of the discussion. We want today not only to be informative as far as the presentation goes, but also give you a chance to ask any questions. Perhaps you've tried something that hasn't worked at your shop. You want to ask the best way to do something. Scott is a tremendous resource. He's been doing this for a long time. And I applaud everything he's done and will do in the future. Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
That's great. Thanks again, Heather. We've got a lot of ground to cover here. This is a topic that is extremely near and dear to my heart, just growing family cycling so that it supports the bike industry and retailers in it, and really the whole industry at every level. I'm going to try to cover a lot of ground for IBDs and also touch a little bit on mass channel, bike advocates, specialty brands, etc. So yeah, let's dive right in. Quick little backstory about who I am. If you're not familiar, I ran a bicycle shop that was based originally out of Jackson Hole, Wyoming, called Fitzgerald's Bicycles. My wife and I and a great team ran that shop until 2015, where my wife and I became more passionate about focusing on youth advocacy and really trying to figure out, how do we get more kids on bikes? And is that something that is, a goal and an effort that we can all get behind, as an industry. So we started writing children's books while we owned the bike shop. You may have heard of B is for Bicycles. And out of B is for Bicycles grew a desire to start a new company. So we launched Buddy Pegs, which was first a children's publishing company for the books and our podcasts. But then it turned into programs because we learned from parents through book tours and going to different bike events that there was really a need for more education around youth cycling. Fast forward to 2019, we actually moved ourselves and the company to Bentonville, Arkansas. We opened up another bike shop called Buddy Peg's Family Bike Shop, and that is located on the north end of Bentonville on the border of Bella Vista. And we focus on all things kids and families. So everything from cargo bikes all the way down to balance bikes and every kid's bike in between, and those entry-level family bikes as well. We also then split the company and launched Pedal Kids USA to really focus on the programmatic side of the company, and not confuse that with the bike shop and what the bike shop does. So sister brands working under the same roof. That's where I sit right now in our ride room, where we do all kinds of programming on a daily basis. But our programming extends all the way through Northwest Arkansas, up into Kansas City, and we've recently launched traveling programs also, so we can bring programming all around the country. And that's just a little bit about us. If you want to reach out, we'll have this contact info at the end too. So we're here really because we have a shared goal, right? I mean, I know everybody on this call feels the same way, that it's really a good idea to grow cycling for all these different reasons, right? It's good for our communities. We build stronger connections with each other and stronger communities out of cycling. It's good for the planet. And ultimately, what we're talking about here, especially with the NBDA, is it's good for our businesses. The more people that get into cycling, and the more families that adopt the sport, the more kids that come into it, the more we're going to have long-term health for the industry. But that focus that we've had on this has started with this question that's been a driving question for me for a long time. And it's, is this a problem, right? Is the number of kids riding bikes in the US actually a problem for the industry? And I started to contemplate this question way back in the Interbike days. I think I did 11 Interbikes in a row and spent most of my time down in the NBDA super seminars in the basement, less on the product side, but more on the advocacy side and the educational side. And this topic would come up a lot, how do we get more kids into the sport? How do we grow cycling? And we'd have to do a lot of digging, a lot of research, and a lot of thinking, and a lot of seminars. And thankfully now, to answer this question, I've got access to a really somewhat expensive consultant that I use now to, ask these questions to. So when you put this in a ChatGPT, it seems silly, but of course, you get the answer that yes, it is actually indeed a problem for the industry, according to the latest supercomputers that we use. And if we can get more kids into biking, it's going to help the long-term health of the industry. It's going to create future growth and sustainability for the industry. Yeah, we know this, right? We don't need, AI to tell us this. We've known this for a long time as an industry. So what do we need to do to actually get this done? Well, first we have to understand the numbers, right? How big is this problem? So the numbers that I like to turn to, and a lot of people in the industry turn to, is the National Sporting Goods Association. They've been running an annual participation study for 40 years now, where they track everything from badminton to bicycles, right? Every sport, every activity you can imagine. It's a great report that's peer-reviewed, statistically sound, and delivers data year over year on how we're doing as an industry on our participation rates. So let's break that down a little bit. First of all, it's important to know that participation, according to this study, means 6+ days a year. So if somebody responds in this survey, they typically get 20 to 30,000 responses and then extrapolate data off of that. And those who say that they ride 6+ days a year count as a participant. So total cycling participation, not looking great in one generation. So let's think about a generation. Typically, that's considered about 20 to 30 years, right? So in one generation, in the year 2000 to current, we've dropped about 22% in ridership, according to the National Sporting Goods Association. However, on the youth side, it looks a little bit different, a little bit more extreme, right? We've gone from 18 million kids annually participating to 10.9 million annually participating. But the third piece of information here that we have to take into consideration is that we've had population growth. So in that same time period, total US population has grown 20%. So the actual number of kids riding has dropped 39%. But as it relates to population, we've really arguably lost half the number of kids riding bikes in just one generation. That's a huge emergency, right? That is a big issue that we need to face and we need to know about and we need to talk about and we need to be familiar with. It can't be hidden in the cracks, right? We have to just come forward with this information and all embrace it and then work to change it, because this is our biggest opportunity. It's not just our biggest problem, it's also our biggest opportunity. Because if we think about our industry as a whole, if we consider it to be just about an $8 billion annual industry, we're just about to cross that threshold. And according to that data, if currently we have about 42.4 million riders annually participating in the sport, when we do some simple math, that's about $189 per rider that we earn as an industry. All right, well, if we grow that number just back to the levels that we used to have in the year 2000, that's an additional $1.8 billion annually. Now, I know, there's lots of ways to poke holes at those numbers for sure. And maybe it's not a $1.8 billion opportunity, but I'll bet it's pretty close. And even if it was a $1 billion opportunity, it's a really big number. We've lost all these riders. We have opportunities to get them back. It's good for our community, it's good for our planet, but look what it does for the health of the industry. Those are significant numbers that we all could be working towards. And I think there's some low-hanging fruit that we can talk about. So in order to set the stage about what we can do, as retailers and everybody else in the supply chain, I want to play a couple of videos. They're not too long, but I think it really exemplifies what the opportunity is and what our customers are thinking. So I'm going to go ahead and play this first video here for us.
Well, honestly, I didn't really know anything about biking. All I really knew was riding around the neighborhood on my little Schwinn growing up. Same with the kids. One of the things you had was that you wanted to check out our bikes. And did not realize they were completely the wrong size for the kids. And as soon as y'all got them on the right bike that fit and functioned as it needed to, it just was like, they liked biking them. They didn't really like it. It was fine. It was something to do. But they got on the right bike and they were like, wow, this is awesome. And then y'all became like a community, and we met so many people out of it that it became almost like another like family. And then I got involved because the kids wanted me to start riding with them. So I took a couple of classes from one of your coaches, and I got myself a mountain bike from you guys, and I got into it, and it's just grown into something that we now do probably 4 to 5 days a week.
No way.
We're out as a family riding.
That's awesome. So that's one of our customers, now one of our friends, because she's in our community and, just participating a lot in what we do. And she came to us because we run youth bicycle programs, and she was curious about how to get her kids into the sport. And that led to conversations about equipment. And it also led to a lot of sales. We sold her kids both bikes. We sold her 2 bikes. We sold them a bike rack, and then they continually come back for more, service, accessories, etc. So that mom who's out there and that parent who's out there, they're everywhere throughout the country. They really don't know how to get into the sport, and they need our expert guidance to do so. And when they are given that expert guidance, they will return with sales, right? They will come to our shops, they will buy equipment, they will get into the sport, and they will create long-term health for the industry. But we have to meet them where they're at, and we have to welcome them into the sport.
Well, honestly, I didn't really know anything about biking.
So what can we do as IBDs, right? We have some work to do, and I want to make it simple, right? I want us all to be thinking about some simple, actionable items, because these are big topics, they're big numbers, but what can we do individually at the IBD level? Well, there's 3 things I want to talk about here. And the first one is talking about the desires of our parents, right? Learning what those desires really are. What are they thinking? Because if we can get inside their heads and we really understand what modern parents are thinking and contemplating, we can communicate to them so much easier. We can welcome them into the sport with the right conversations, with the right knowledge, with the right pace of explaining the sport to them. But we've got to crack the code on this, and we all have to be familiar with what these parents are thinking, especially from bike retail ownership level to managers, and then down to our frontline employees. So I'm going to play another video here, follow up with Liz, and we're going to get inside her head a little bit more about what bicycling really means for her and her family.
But once we started biking, one thing I loved about it is I could disconnect when I'm on a bike because I don't have my phone in my hands. But also the kids, they didn't feel the need to be drawn to a screen, and conversation flowed. We got a lot closer. The time that we spend together is absolutely amazing. They're much more confident, definitely more confident. My confidence too. It's gotten all of us to step outside the box and try new things. Everyone is so kind and open. It's also a way for us to cope with different things in our life in a healthy way. So to me, it's an investment in the kids' future, my future, the future of our town. I mean, everything. So it's a no-brainer for me. Never thought we would be at this point. It's life-changing. It's amazing. It is literally the best investment we have ever made. Yeah.
Thank you. Literally the best investment we have ever made. These topics that she's bringing up, right? These emotional states, these feelings that she has, they are super powerful. I mean, we could obviously do a whole seminar just on, psychographics and how to tap into, those emotional states of our customers. But we have an incredible opportunity as an industry. You probably all already, of course, are aware of this, but the connection that a parent feels to their child while riding, the confidence that they see grow right before their eyes in their kids, the screen time issues that are just, permeating parenting and the number one driver for a lot of parents these days. And then just the emotional regulation of how do people actually handle difficulty in their life, and how do they develop resilience and self-confidence and ability to just overcome obstacles in life. That's what we're selling, right? That's what we're offering these families. But do we talk about that, right? Are we training our staff and our team to really lead with these conversations and know that that's what's going to really resonate with these parents, not necessarily just, go through a transactional relationship where we're talking about wheel size and equipment and spec and price and all that. We need to get there, of course. Those are all valuable conversation pieces. But just knowing as an industry what parents are thinking about the bicycle and what it delivers is a huge first step for all of us to be taking. And from there, we need to train our staff about it, right? We need to train our team. We need to communicate this down to those frontline team members who are there communicating with our parents. But it's more than just the psychographics. That's sort of step one in the training. When we start to get into the nitty-gritty just a little bit more, we have to understand how to support the youth and family category. Now, I know the youth category isn't, the biggest moneymaker in any of our shops, right? They're low margin dollar bikes typically, but they lead to other things. They lead to mom buying a bike. They lead to upgrades down the road. They lead to service. They're really important on-ramps for us. But we have to know how to start that conversation. If we're going to take this seriously as an industry, everyone's got to really know what wheel size to begin with fits what child. And what I've experienced in bike shops for, 30 years now, and I've done myself too, is somebody comes in, oftentimes a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or uncle, and they want to buy a bike for the little one in their life, right? But they don't have that child there. So they say like, hey, I'm looking for, a bike for a 4-year-old. What should I get? If we go to the, previously catalog, now we're going to websites, right? And we look at sizing charts and we try to figure out, well, how tall are they? And then we're asking, well, how about how tall? If I knew how tall they were, I could make a recommendation. No, we've already lost that conversation. We should know, we're the experts in the industry, and we should know that if a 4-year-old is looking for a bike, it's going to likely be a 16-inch wheel bike. We can just memorize these numbers, right? It's going to be 95% accurate. And if it's not, of course, we're going to take the bike back. We're going to give them, the right size. They can return that bike, whatever. But just off the cuff, we should all be really familiar with what wheel size fits what child, if we're going to be the experts in the industry and we're going to welcome more families into the sport. So this is a small thing we can do to train our team to know these numbers and really take that seriously. Other small things we could do once we get past wheel size, we can really be training our team better in how to fit a child to a bike. So first of all, there's seat height. Seat height really varies depending on stage of learning that child is at, right? We are going to be low at first. We're going to raise incrementally, but it also depends on the age of the child. I'm not going to go super in depth here, but I do want to point out that the kid on the green bike on the right, he's an 8-year-old child learning how to ride a bike. It feels really different when you're learning how to ride a bike at that age, and seat height needs to reflect that, just so that child's body doesn't get sore when he's learning how to balance and pedal and kick and glide and all those things. So we're going to run a little bit of a lower seat height. But the child on the left, who's on the little balance bike, we're really encouraging that little toddler to put weight on his butt so that he can learn how to control and steer the bike with body mass. So we're going to put the seat up a little bit higher so that knee isn't bent. So there's a lot of details here about seat height that, again, as experts in the industry, as specialty retailers, we should be familiar with these nuances and training our staff, to also know those nuances. When it comes to brake lever reach adjustment, I see this all the time. Bikes roll out of bike shops, and there's been no adjustment on the brake lever reach adjustment. 98% of bikes being sold, especially in IBDs, have brake lever reach adjustment. I know they're coated in blue Loctite. I know they're hard to turn with a typical Allen key, but there are Allen keys that you can get that are really long reach that fit in there really well. You can screw in that brake lever reach adjustment, and we can make it fit the child's hand easier. So when that child comes in to sit on a bike for the first time, mom and dad see, oh, they can easily reach those brakes. That's fantastic. What a great, way to show that that bike shop is supporting safe riding for kids, has good equipment, and the equipment is adjusted for the child. I would love it if brands actually put in the brake lever reach adjustment from the factory, but that's probably a stretch. The other thing I'd love for brands to do, which probably won't happen tomorrow, but is stack height adjustment on kids' bikes. So bikes come out of the box with the stem all the way at the top of the steerer tube of the fork with all these spacers underneath. But kids get onto the next size wheel when they can just barely fit that wheel, typically. So we want those handlebars to be low to fit the low range of adjustment. So when your bike assemblers are putting these bikes together out of the box, a simple step they could do is just take those spacers, put them to the top of the stem, and then kids aren't riding, ape hangers right out of the box. They're riding handlebar height that's down more by their chest. It's going to give them more stability and more control. Again, just a simple thing we can do, at bike shops during the assembly. All right, another simple thing for training the team. Learning to ride with balance first, we know is the way to go. I would hypothesize that most of you on this call, if you've taught kids how to ride a bike or you've gone through the learning curve with your own kids or grandkids or nieces or nephews or customers, you know that a balance bike is the way to go. But every bike can be a balance bike. If we take pedals off a 16-inch wheel, a 20-inch wheel, a 24-inch wheel, or an adult bike, it's still the right way to teach anybody how to learn to ride. Balance, then pedaling. But as an industry, we have to adopt that and we have to be consistent with that messaging so that we don't send mixed messages to our audience, to our customers, to people coming into our store. So if we're selling balance bikes right next to training wheel bikes, that's a conflicting message. It says that we don't really believe in balance first because we believe balance is for the little kids, but then we put training wheels on to teach kids how to pedal or adults to pedal, and then we take the training wheels off and try to figure out the balance. We just need to flip the script on that and go with a balance first method of learning and then train our staff to do that. So this progression from balance bike that is found in most bike shops now to training wheel bikes that's also found in most bike shops, this is what we want to eliminate. We want to ditch those training wheels. We want to communicate that any bike can be a balance bike, and we go from balance bike to a pedal-less bike to reinforce balancing before we introduce pedals. And after working with over 10,000 kids, I have no doubt this is the absolute way to go. And a child who can balance a bike, kick and glide confidently, we're going to put those pedals on and they're just going to start riding. There's not going to be the struggle that is involved with learning to ride currently right now. So if you're a local bike shop and you've trained your team and worked through a lot of these different ideas and you're ready for more, I really suggest parking lot classes and events. Bring the community to you, bring new customers to you right at your store. A lot of shops have the space to do simple parking lot activations and about the size of a basketball court. It doesn't really take that much space. Some simple cones and rope to cordon off a little area to teach kids how to glide, how to pedal, how to ride safely, how to use brakes, how to do steering control, can happen right in front of your store. You can charge people for that service. You can offer it for free, but ultimately you are bringing in new customers and you're strengthening your position in the community as the expert, the leader, and the advocate who's trying to get more families into the sport. Those can turn into family rides. You can leave your property then and go on longer journeys, longer adventures to whatever degree your shop feels like it can support it and whatever, staff you have available or volunteers you have to do that. If it's a barrier to, mobilize the team and do this, we can help. We have consulting services. We offer traveling roadshows. We come to bike shops and do this, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. But the big takeaway is just give it a shot. Start trying it, thinking about it. Do it in a way that works for your shop and the capabilities and capacity that you have with your team. So here's a little case study of what that looks like. So after the past NBDA conference here in Bentonville, we got connected to Russ, who owns Full Cycle up in Boulder. And he brought us in to do exactly this, one of these parking lot activations. So we came and we did a 2-day mini camp, learn to pedal event right in front of his store, right in his parking lot. And we charged parents to come. We got 9 parents to pay $150 each. We only did 3 weeks of promotion. You know, he put it out in his newsletter. We did some Facebook ads, and parents were thrilled. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this here. We've got a video.
Yeah, I was
from this
on
mom.
Facebook one day and came across this ad for pedal kids, and I thought, how am I going to get him to go? We have had, as I call it, years and tears with learning to ride a bike. We've tried multiple bikes. We've tried multiple methods. I tried incentivizing him. There was just a roadblock with him, and I don't know if it was with me specifically. We would get out there, he would get really upset really quickly, and there was just this mental block. And I went to him and I said, you know, I realized that Mom has been a really bad teacher. So if you're okay with going, I would like to take you there. We got there and I purposely kind of hid off in the corner where he couldn't see me very well. You know, just watching him be so excited to get back to the beginning, back to the ramp. Within about an hour and a half, he was ready to earn a pedal. He was so excited to come back on day 2, and he's like, I'm getting my second pedal. I'm getting my second pedal.
Awesome.
And I was like, he was so excited again, cutting the line to get faster around the track so that he could just get back to the beginning and start again. From the minute we walked up to camp, she was like, hey guys, yeah. Her enthusiasm was just infectious. She was absolutely amazing with the kids. It was like no one even hesitated to get back on their bikes because she was just so outstanding with them, and acknowledged that they had fallen, but also acknowledged their bravery. And I just absolutely loved it. Yeah, it was just unbelievable how quickly she was able to teach him when we had spent, as I say, years and tears not getting there. Yeah.
Years and tears. We hear that all the time. We run a lot of learn to pedal programs, thousands of kids a year. She is not unique. That is not a unique story. We hear that every day. Parents are trying and they're failing to just get their kid into the sport. So here we are as an industry where we have, I would argue we have millions of these moms and dads out in the country who want to get their kid into the sport of cycling, and they're failing. We can help them. We can develop programs. We can develop on-ramps. We can develop support systems to get them over that first hurdle. And what does that do? It reverses the decline in youth cycling. It brings in more customers to our industry. It strengthens our industry as a whole. We just have to go out and get them and just show them how to do it and teach them how to do the sport, but teach them the right way. Make it fun. Don't expect parents to be their child's coach in bike education. Parents are not, they're failing at being their kid's coach in all kinds of different sports, right? I have a kid. I look to expert coaches to teach him different sports. Kids are learning more from coaches and expert guidance today than they ever have in the past. The bike industry as a whole, we just need to evolve and adopt what other sports have already figured out, which is kids come into the sport through expert coaching.
Yeah.
So at this camp, here we are, we've got 9 kids. We had 7 4-year-olds, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, and out of the 9, 5 of them were pedaling completely confidently after just 4 hours of instruction. So 2-hour evening sessions at the shop. And the ones who didn't, they're 4 years old. They're a little bit young. They typically take just a little bit longer to teach, to adopt. But they were right there. They're really close. They're pedaling now. But it does take a little bit longer for the younger kids. But as for all of you to know, really what we see time and time again is that 3 years old is the typical age for a child to learn how to pedal independently using handbrakes to stop themselves if they've gone through a balance bike year from 2 to 3 years old. So 3 years old, 4 years old, that's a typical age to teach a child how to ride independently. When we start to get into 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, that's a little bit of a delayed pedaler. So if, as an industry, we start backing that age down and we all recognize that, okay, we can go from balance bike at 2 years old to pedaling at 3 years old. That is also a game changer for the future health of our industry. But what's the real value to the shop? It feels really good, of course, to get kids on bikes. And as we look at this image here from in front of Full Cycle, my eyes, of course, are originally drawn to the kids, right? Super cute kids learning how to ride. We love that. Feels really good. But what we're really doing is we're attracting new customers right to our store. The customers that we already have, we're fortifying that customer loyalty and we're growing the sport long term. So if we think about this image a little differently, the real focus of this image is everybody who's peering in the background. These are dads and a mom over here who are now thinking, oh, I need to get a bike. Oh, this could be a family sport. Oh, it could meet my desires of less screen time, more family connection, more time in the outdoors. I see my kid becoming more confident right in front of my eyes. My kid fell down. I didn't run over there. The coach celebrated the crash. The kid didn't get hurt. It was a tiny little topple over. And now the child gets back up and gets on the bike and is immediately more confident. And mom sees that and mom is thrilled. Now we've got somebody paying attention to cycling, and those customers can become significant value adds for the shop. Or we could focus on the same guy who's walking out, who just is always in the shop anyways, and he's just looking for a deal, and maybe he just bought a, Wahoo at a discount, right? Think about who we're targeting as our customers. All right, shifting gears off of the independent retailer, how can specialty brands help us as IBDs? Well, there's a few things they can do. First and foremost, we got to stop shipping bikes with training wheels. Again, adopting that balance first method of learning to ride. If training wheels are in the box, the bike builder is going to put them on. If training wheels in the box, the bike is going to be displayed on the sales floor with training wheels. But if it's not the right way to teach kids how to ride, it's a waste of money for the specialty brands because they're paying to put those training wheels in the box. It's a waste of natural resources because we're using more plastic and metal and paint and whatever to put these things in the box that then typically just get, thrown away or put in a box. And it's holding back participation growth in our sport. So I'm not saying, hey, training wheels are not a thing for anybody. We've got special needs kids who really need training wheels for sure. We have parents who aren't quite ready probably to adopt this balance first mindset. No big deal. You can stock training wheels. They could be in the back room. They could be on a slat wall hook for sale for an additional upcharge. You could give them to a parent who needs them. But if we are displaying them in the sales floor environment, that's communicating silently that this is the way to teach a kid how to ride a bike. So if we back it up in the supply chain, if the brands are putting them in the box, the retailer is going to put them on the bike. The bike's going to get on the sales floor, and we're already starting behind the 8 ball here. So IBD brands, if you're listening, please just stop putting them in the box. What can we do instead? Well, they could put kickstands on, right? A lot of bike companies now are putting kickstands on the bike. Parents love it, but the retailers love it because now we can display the bikes. And I get that the small bikes don't fit in typical bike racks. So there is an opportunity to build better bike racks for smaller bikes for sure, but a kickstand immediately solves that problem. So specialty brands leave out the training wheels, put on a kickstand. Now all of a sudden your shop can immediately put that bike on the sales floor. We're solving that display challenge. We're not sending conflicting messages, and we're supporting the growth of the sport. Little side note too, the independent brands, they're starting at a 16-inch wheel. We need to see more 14-inch wheels in the marketplace. 12-inch balance bike, all the way up to 16-inch wheel bike. There's a whole year of growth and gap there. We need to have more 14-inch wheel bikes. What about those mass brands, right? The Walmarts, the Targets. The mass channel is important. The mass channel is important for the IBD because more than half the bikes in the country every year are sold through mass. Those mass customers can turn into IBD customers. So we can't be hating on the mass. We got to embrace the mass channel and help them evolve for the health of the whole industry, right? Let's raise that tide for everybody. Well, what can they do? They can evolve their geometry, right? They can modernize their bikes. I'm not saying make the bikes higher quality. They're trying to hit a price point. That price point is probably likely going to be where they're going to live. But they could change their geometry and still hit that price point. What we see all the time in our classes is that parents bring in a mass market brand to our Learn to Pedal classes, and the child cannot put their feet on the ground. They're just too tall. So we take the pedals off to try to teach balance first. Kids' feet are dangling in midair, and there's nothing we can do. They really can't use the bikes. So let's modernize those bikes. Let's not hold back participation growth in the mass channel, and let's encourage mass to really take that to the next level. And advocacy orgs, how can advocacy orgs help? Well, we can think about a couple of different ways to modernize our efforts in advocacy. I would love it if advocacy could lead us with a goal. What are we trying to attain as a bike industry? What's the goal we all can get behind? I think that goal starts with our advocate partners, whether that's NBDA, People for Bikes, League of American Cyclists. What's the goal that we can all sink our teeth into? Then, how are we embracing the balance first method of learning? Are we all talking about that consistently? Is that a consistent talking point that we all hear from every single channel in advocacy? And then advocacy groups could really put the effort into figuring out the right messaging pillars. There's a lot that we can talk about with cycling. There's a lot that we benefit from with cycling, but let's boil it down to what really hits. Let's get some meaningful investment in the right marketing consultants who can help us develop the right messaging strategy to meet those parents where they're at. And potentially, this is our goal. Maybe we could double the number of kids on bikes. You know, we had 10 million, we have 10 million kids on bikes currently. We used to have 20 million. Maybe this is our goal. But I'm not the one to set the goal. I'm just suggesting a goal. We need advocates to say, yeah, this is what we're going to get behind, and this is what we're all going to lean in on. This is what happened in baseball. US baseball participation dropped 15% in 1 year, and the entire baseball industry called it an existential crisis. And they focused all of their attention on that decline in youth participation, and they turned that participation around because they all got behind that as a goal. And if we were to embrace that as a goal, I suggest that our beachhead, where this starts, where we land, is training wheels. We get behind the balance first method of teaching, and we ditch those training wheels, and we get kids riding the right way. If you want help with that as a retailer or a brand or anybody in the industry, I'd love to talk to you. Reach out, shoot me an email. Heather can connect you to me also, because this is a conversation that's really important, and it's just starting. We need to all get behind this conversation and lift each other up, you know, with these concepts. So I'm going to pause with that, take questions. I hope I've been able to at least give some, you know, tangible things we can do that aren't that heavy of a lift, and then some bigger ideas we can get behind.
Scott, thank you so much. What a fantastic presentation. So much was packed into that. So for our attendees, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and place them in the chat, and I will moderate those to Scott. Scott, just there is a question here that's coming in about how the relationship with Full Cycle. So that was just Russ reaching out to you, and the two of you chose a date for his event. And the question is basically like, what work did the retailer have to do?
Yeah, that was a really fun initiative. So that was born out of just a conversation at the NBDA conference, where I was actively looking, and still am actively looking, for bike shops who are interested in this type of programming, so that we can develop more of these case studies, so we can, you know, fortify the message I'm trying to deliver here. And Russ said, yeah, I'm interested. Like, let's talk. So he connected me with his marketing person at his shop. You know, he's big enough and fortunate enough to have somebody who focuses on marketing. But he shepherded that conversation along. The only thing the retailer needed to do in that situation was put it in their newsletter and put it on their social media. They printed flyers and hung them on the wall. So we did all the marketing materials. We created the flyers, created all the digital assets, sent them to the shop. They pushed it out through their channels. And then we managed registration. We managed all the customer communications. And we took it from there. So that, you know, the real goal is, I recognize, I've been a retailer for a long time. I know retailers are busy, and I don't want retailers to have to do any more work than they're already doing, because it's tough to be, you know, a specialty retailer. So I recognize that it has to be pretty turnkey, and that's what we focus on.
Awesome, fantastic. Another question came in about the correct age to start a child on a balance bike. Ooh, is that just depending on child, like when they're able to walk? Very open-ended question. He's coming right back. So Scott jumped away. There's another question in here from Jeff on the poster being created for bike shops, and we will ask that to Scott. when he comes back. Awesome. Thanks, Scott.
Sorry about that. Of course,
Oh, that's
perfect
great.
timing. Yeah, that's when the yard
Yeah.
crew comes.
Two questions. One is on the correct age to start a child on a balance bike. I mean, I think depends on the child.
18 to 24 months is what we see typically. So you could just think in your head 2 years old, and you might have some accelerated kids who really get into it a little bit earlier. At that age, it really comes down to individual confidence of the child. Some kids are just born a little bit more confident or gregarious. They're a little bit more, risk takers. The kids who are a little bit more shy and conservative or cautious, they might be just over 2 years old, but 2 years old balance bike, 3 years old first pedal bike.
Excellent. Lots of questions coming in now. So as far as the one event you did at Full Cycle where 9 people were there with limited marketing, would you suggest that shops do these sort of events on a cadence? So I'm thinking that you would attract more families each time.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, say, REI does learn to pedal classes at many of their locations on a cadence around the country, and I think that's an opportunity that every IBD has as well, as long as it fits the capacity of the store. We do learn to pedal classes on a monthly basis, so we do a 4-week series here out of our shop where parents come one night a week. For our traveling programs, we're consolidating that down so that we can put a coaching team on the road and they can go and do 4 hours of instruction in a more concentrated time period. But it's about 4 hours. We like about 4 hours of instruction to really get that child riding. Most kids, 2 hours, they figure it out. If not, the more advanced kids, an hour. It doesn't take that long, but the key is to make it fun and not force it so it doesn't become just full of pressure and this pressure to perform. So we spend a lot of time making it just goofy and fun and connect fun with cycling.
Yeah. I have to tell you what I saw you put together at Bentonville and at the Bike Fest outside. It looked like so much fun. The kids were just over there having a blast. I think you had every kid at the festival. A poster. So a question, can a poster be created that bike shops could buy that says balance first? Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. Writing that one down for sure.
For you. Yeah. Any other questions from our attendees? All right, Scott, looks like we got through the pressing questions. This presentation, all the statistics you've shown, this is an important topic, and I urge anyone who's listening to reach out to Scott as a retailer, as a brand or supplier, and let's go after that goal. Scott, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Heather. Thanks for having me, and please reach out.
Bye, everyone.